It's crazy to me that we're on the map. 6 months later, and our town is still on this national map. Everyone now knows where Newtown is. Communities like ours don't just form themselves. A true sense of community comes from strangers wanting to come together and know one another for the greater good of their neighborhood. And we need more of that nowadays, right, Brody? See how easy and painless that was? Now you try it. Turn to your neighbor and say hi. And now we have a community.
You know, on the 13th, you didn't know where Newtown was, or that we had a flagpole, or a creamery, or a parade. Obscure was nice.
To know where we are, you have to know who we are. So let's wipe the slate clean, because let's face it. He's right. Obscurity was nice. They say the world is connected through 6 degrees, but out here in Newtown, it's about 1. And if you were born and raised here, everyone is family.
The friends I have are the friends that I grew up with. I do have a couple of new ones, but most of the friends that I hang out with, I grew up with. And people are like, really? Because I don't even talk to anybody I grew up with. But it's everybody wants to come back, you know?
How many of you have been out to Newtown? Not many of you, huh? Newtown is pretty spread out, but it all comes together at the center of town, and smack dab in the middle is the flagpole. If you haven't seen it, it's this big, huge flagpole with this massive American flag high above the town. Right next to it is Edmond Town Hall.
Edmond Town Hall is the only $2 movie theater in the entire state. The town offices used to be there, as you might have guessed, but they're moved to Fairfield Hills. Too much bureaucracy to handle within a 1930s building, I guess.
There's also a secret bathroom in there, 1 flight down, that if no one is looking, can be very helpful in case of emergencies, but don't tell anyone. Now, Main Street runs straight through the town, and all along it we have churches, restaurants, the library, and businesses like the Dana Holcomb House Bed and Breakfast.
We'd been living in Australia, and Darren hadn't been back to see his family here in the States for mostly 19 years. And so it was time to come back. So we started researching, as I had all this criteria that it had to be on the coast, and the East Coast is closer to Ohio than the West Coast, so we'll do the East Coast. It had to be no more than an hour from the coast, because, well, no Australians live more than an hour from the coast. We can't cope.
Landlocked does not work.
So I said, sorry, I can't live in Ohio under any circumstances.
And you had no argument for me, did you?
So we decided we want to be driving distance from New York, but somewhere that was kind of similar to what the kids in us knew, which was sort of a small, sleepy town. Now, the first house that comes up is in a place called Newtown. Now, Newtown is one of my favorite places in Australia, so the name and kind of everything just fits, you know? The idea of a new town. So I'm all, let's research this town. Oh, look, they have great schools. Oh, they have low crime.
Where we were living was just zero crime of any kind. They've never even lost a politician to violence. They did, however, lose that one prime minister. How'd they lose him?
He went swimming and then never came back. They never found him.
So we get in there and drive into town and see the flagpole and pull up to the Dana Holcomb house, and we have this amazing loft upstairs.
Like a family suite called the Americana Room.
Which was, flag bedspread, flag pillowcase, flag carpet, flag pictures, and flag mementos on the bookcase. And in Australia, Australians aren't, they're not patriotic per se, they're not flag waving.
No, definitely not flag waving.
So, on her first night in America, she got to come home and sleep in bed and drape herself in a flag while looking out that window because you can see the flagpole and there was this breeze enough so that the wind was snapping, full. You are falling asleep to the red, white, and blue.
You wake up the next morning in a jet lag, and when you wake up and you don't really remember where you were or where you are, well, I wake up and there are 1,000 American flags in my face, and I'm like, okay, we're definitely in America.
Now, right off Main Street is Ram's Pasture, which is this beautiful historic field. If you were to go turn a right at the pasture, you'll hit Sugar Street, and right up the road is the creamery.
Okay, so the creamery they rallied around the town to save this farm, and it's literally on the other side of here. It's really close, and on this side of the mountain. It's a working dairy farm, and they make their own ice cream. And so there's a shack there that's open from noon to 10 every night, starting April 9th till, I guess, it's cold. And sometimes you go and it's packed, and it's this awesome ice cream. And you smell the manure. I mean, you're out in like a dairy farm. It's just one of those things where you're like, this is Newtown.
Hi, I'm the town hugger. Well, that's the only title that's been given to me. I'm actually still in the house I was born in. Brought up in Sandy Hook most of my life. I'm actually fourth generation here in town on my mother's side. So stories I could give you. Stories that go back even before my time. Everyone knew everyone. Everyone watched over everyone's kids. I mean, I have so many moms and dads to this day. Let's see, what else? Oh, Pat Loder is our first selectman. So I guess that's kind of like our mayor, you could say.
Carol runs the town of Newtown.
Oh, please stop. My God, I'll lose my job.
They'll say, gee, what does she do? And I tell them, well, she runs the town of Newtown.
She does. My mom runs it.
No, she doesn't.
Everything, one way or another, gets passed through Carol and, well, even her boss, you know? But the beauty of the whole thing is she's comfortable enough to do all of that.
There are so many memories just right here of playing with the neighborhood kids and sledding in the wintertime. And the bell, the sound of the bell attached to the side of the house. That was the way Mom got us home.
It was a bronze bell that was cast at the foundry I worked at. They gave it to me as a gift when I left, you know?
And you can hear it all over the neighborhood, and all the kids ran. And that was it. It was time for dinner. And if I rang the bell twice...
If we were to head back to the flagpole and make a sharp left, you'd find yourself on Churchill Road. Follow Churchill straight up, and you'll find yourself smack in the village of Sandy Hook.
I grew up and went to all the schools around here. It's our lifeblood, this town. Been here a long time, specifically Sandy Hook. It's been Sandy Hook for the most part. We're builders. We do a lot of things, builders and contractors. We own a lot of the commercial property that you see around here.
Well, Jerry Ann and I met at Captain Cook's, and we decided we were going to have open our first business, and this was not our first choice.
Actually, we were at another space because I'm not from here. So there was such a calling. We were looking at a space on Main Street, and we were sitting down to sign the papers for the lease, and I looked at Star and the other landlord, and I said, you know, my angels are telling us we just can't do this. So then we ended up here in Sandy Hook. I'm a healer, and Star does angel readings. And there's such a calling to come here.
We're hoping to help everyone. If you came in and you told me a story that, and you said, I'm really confused. I really don't know where I'm going. Myself or Jerry Ann can sit with you.
Yeah.
Well, that's about it. As you can see, we have our born and breds, but we're also a town of transplants from all over. The story pretty much tells itself from this point on.
I've been the rabbi in town for 11 years now. I came in 2002, and I came to Connecticut, particularly Newtown, to live the quiet life. I had been in larger synagogues where I thought that would make make more success. A bigger synagogue, more success, and just a workhorse cranking out 50 or 60 B'nai Mitzvah ceremonies a year. And It's a huge amount of ceremonies to educate and conduct and prepare and produce. I wasn't at all happy with this. And then this Newtown offering was like, it was like the perfect job description. It was so small, this congregation, small politics, hopefully.
I was under obedience to the bishop when I was a pastor at another parish. Like, we had just finished getting to that parish. We were out of debt, our school was flourishing, and we put up new buildings, and the bishop came to dedicate those buildings. And he said, "You know we're going to need you at some other places." It wasn't like 2 months later when I received a phone call, and it was like, I had it, I thought we had a great place, but he said, "I need you to go to Newtown." So we take a vow of obedience. And whenever the bishop asks you to do something, for the most part, you say yes.
A couple of things that I love are, well, first of all, I feel like it's sort of a very intelligent and eclectic mix. There are a lot of people from other areas that moved here. Newtown was written up years before I was pregnant with my son or had even looked at it as one of the top 10 places to raise kids.
A couple of people I worked with, one of them in particular said, "You have to live in Sandy Hook. It's where I lived. It's the best school district. There's no way you couldn't love it."
Even just our first experience with the realtor was so nice. I mean, she bent over backwards for us, showing us houses that weren't even on the market yet. She just totally loved living in Sandy Hook. And even the fact that she loved it so much made a statement,
I would say we probably have the same memories that any other town has. The Labor Day parade was huge. I marched through the Labor Day parade as a kid down Main Street. It was great. Everyone in town was there. It was just fantastic.
Main Street is kind of the site for this very much out-of-hand holiday Halloween tradition. I mean, you're really about the farm if you live on Main Street. If you live on Main Street, you gotta know what you're in for is all I'm saying. There are so many people that the candy is donated to the people in these houses to parse out to the thousands of kids that come. Yeah, it's frightening. I kid you not, it's frightening, and not because it's Halloween.
On December 3rd, it's usually December 3rd or whatever the first Friday of December is, they have a Christmas tree lighting. The town of Newtown, all the residents, they put a candle in a bag and they line Main Street. Miles, all up the hill, down the hill, past the pasture, and all the way around the corner. I was driving by it one day and I thought to myself, wow, my God, this is absolutely breathtaking. I mean, it just takes your breath away. It's one of those things you don't forget. It's forever.
The tree lighting in both Newtown and Sandy Hook doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It's just a bunch of people crowded around a big tree. But it brings a certain kind of energy that I really haven't found anywhere else.
It's just quaint, and what you would expect from a small, beautiful New England town. It's a very special time here. There was a meteor shower on the 13th, and I was standing outside with my two boys that night. We saw 7 shooting stars because it's so clear here and so dark here you can see all of it. After we went inside and they went to bed, I went outside and made a wish that both my sons would always be safe and happy. My cell phone rang at my desk, and I picked it up as I recognized it as the school. They have like an automatic call thing where you get messages when there's school closings or delays or when something happens. And so it was our superintendent, and all she said was, "All Newtown public schools are in a lockdown due to a shooting." Click, and that was it.
I'm editing photos that morning, and I have Photoshop on a big monitor. Whenever a new email comes in, it flashes briefly in the right-hand corner. This email catches my eye and it says, the school's in a lockdown due to a shooting. So I got up and I told Georgia, who was at her desk, did you see that message? And as soon as those words came out of my mouth, her face turned white. Her worst fear had come true.
We all thought it was the high school, definitely not the elementary school. So I'm sitting there in the hair salon, I'm sitting there in the chair and I'm starting to panic. One of my babysitters calls me and says, Jen, I just heard the shooting is on Dickinson Drive. Isn't that where Sandy Hook is?
I hear sirens like really far out, and we are near the highway, so with no leaves on the trees, you hear sirens sometimes. So we're walking back to the office, and as we turn right there in the property there at the subway, there are 4 teachers. I intercept them and I say, "What's going on?" They were in shock and in tears, and they said something very, very bad. Gunshots. Many gunshots.
My little one had an ear infection, and we had a 9:45 appointment at the doctor's office up the street. So the doctor came in and he said, "I'm sorry, all this going on at Sandy Hook." And then, he kind of examined my daughter and kind of moved on. So we went into the waiting room in the meantime, and we got another phone call. I think they said that it was Sandy Hook School. And there were other moms in the waiting room, but it didn't really dawn on me what was going on until one of the moms said to me, "It's in the school." And I was just like, oh my God. So they said, "Good luck," and I said, "I got 2 girls in that school."
I had a 10 o'clock appointment with a bat mitzvah girl and her parents. At 10:03, the father, who's a fireman, apologized and said he had to go, called away from our final rehearsal as it was the next day. He said, "There's been a shooting at the school." So off he goes, and we continue our rehearsal. 15 minutes later, he texts, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen." And then the phone rings, and it's Father Weiss, or Robert Weiss, secretary, and she says,
All clergy go down to the firehouse immediately.
All clergy down to the firehouse immediately.
By this time, there was nothing we can do. The school wasn't answering their phones, and everyone was still on lockdown. I was talking to my husband when I got a call. We got a call saying, "You can pick up your kids at the school, at the firehouse." And so I said to my hairdresser, "I gotta go. I gotta get out of here."
I told her that I was going to go to the firehouse and meet her there. I did not want her to know that I knew it was a first grade class, because she couldn't leave where she was, and that would have made her worry even more. So, yeah, I got in my car and I went to the firehouse.
It's as if someone opened the floodgates right there in that moment, and every personnel, police, you name it, first responders in the world was coming. And they came down Churchill. There really is only one way to come. This is it. It was a problem because they were coming down this road just so fast, and this is a bad intersection. So I'm looking around and I notice that none of the police are stopping. So I tell my father to keep going, and I go out on the road, and I was directing traffic for like an hour. And as I was doing it, I start to realize that this is really significant.
So I get to Riverside Road, and there are cars all over the place. So I pulled over, and there was a man kind of, telling people where to go. And there were just cars parked everywhere. So I unrolled my window and I said, "What's going on? Where are the kids?"
They're all coming to the firehouse.
So I got my husband on the phone and I said, "Come out to the driveway and I'll pick you up and drop you off as far as I can." So he came out and I dropped him off and he ran down and then I just said, "Bring back both of them."
They start combing through the woods or something, and they drag some guy out, and he was like,
I didn't do anything, I swear, I didn't do anything!
and everyone was like, "Oh, they caught one of the gunmen and put him in a car."
No, I didn't do anything!
and it was just a neighbor.
I approached the firehouse, and there's a female FBI agent talking to, she was saying, I want you to go over your class roster. For every name, if there was someone on the list that, was absent that day, then put an X. If there was someone that, you saw in school that day, but you saw with your own eyes leaving the building, then put a check. And, if there was someone, third category, that you knew and saw in school that day, but you did not see with your own eyes leaving the building with you or with anybody else, then put a circle.
I was on my way home, and in 10 minutes, I knew my kids were okay because my husband was already there.
My husband called me a few minutes later, and he said that he found one, and he was going back to look for the other, and then he called me back, and he said he had them both.
I can't even describe how panicked it started to get for me because he wasn't answering his phone and the texts were flying. Okay, do you have him? Why aren't you answering me? Where's our son? What's going on? And I was just leaving him these messages and starting to get that rising panic inside, like something's not right because he's avoiding me.
Then they said there was no second shooter and that the shooter inside was dead. And then they said he was found dead in a classroom. Found in a classroom. And at that point, I broke down. I mean, I went out into my yard and I picked up the first stick I could find and I just beat the hell out of that tree because I knew that was the worst case. Shooter killing himself. I knew he didn't just walk in and shoot himself in front of those kids. And I couldn't imagine why. I mean, without the information that there was more than the three. Him being in the classroom and the numbers we just watched in horror as it went from a handful to a dozen, 20. And I just thought, we had topped Columbine.
The female blondish FBI agent who was most in charge of the room started coming our way, and so I said, I'm going to go talk to this lady. And so I say, look, I'm Rabbi Praver, I know what's happened. Now what can I do to help? And she said, come with me. And then we walked through a corridor to the back room.
When I got there, it was pretty, they took all the fire trucks out, all the bays, so it was fully empty, and there weren't many people there. A few parents, a few teacher aides were there, and they were all holding up signs for the different classes to line up. It was almost maybe 10 minutes, and kids just started pouring into the firehouse, and they were all sort of lining up by their number. More and more kids were coming, and I didn't see his teacher. I didn't see any of his classmates. I didn't see him, and I just went from one end of the firehouse to the other. So I saw his teacher, and I started moving over to where she was. She had maybe 4 to 5 kids, and each, they were all holding hands, but none of them were him, and my heart just dropped.
So he finally calls me and says,
I have him.
And I just felt like, okay.
And I went over and gave him a big hug. I mean, we were all still in a state of shock. I signed for a release, and after that, he said he wanted to drink a water, but I said I didn't have any on me. He said, oh no, there's water in the back. Kids were just coming through to the back door of the firehouse, and I guess there were drinks back there.
And so this is the back room for the families that got the circle on the roster.
It was a small room with couches, 2 couches, and a bar with little Dixie cups of water on it. So he got a drink, and we saw one of our friends. She said, have you seen my son? Her son is a first grader and one of our son's closest friends. I told her I hadn't and that I'd stay with her until he got back. So we were there consoling her as best as we could. You know, he's a good kid. He's going to be fine. His class was late, and I'm sure his class will be coming soon.
I'm walking around, and it doesn't take more than 15 seconds before I saw Veronique and Lenny Posner. Veronique is just sitting there, glassy-eyed, and saying to me, Rabbi, I don't know if I can... No, I can't go on. If Noah is dead, I just can't go on. No, that would be too much.
So then her husband comes and he goes to leave to go look for the sons, and I say, are you sure you don't want me to stay? You know I'll stay. No, you guys can go. My husband's here, he'll be back in a minute. So by the time we left, the firehouse was almost empty. Almost all the kids had been matched up with their parents.
The governor was there. Pat was there. And we had accounted for the children. All the children. We had to account for 600 children. And everybody was involved in this decision, which was, we were waiting for the police to do their thing. And the coroners were coming in. And the EMTs were there. And they knew, what this was going to be. And the governor said, I can't. I had to make the decision. So he went into the back room of the firehouse and let them know. They weren't coming out.
People were falling on the floor, crying, tearing their hair out. And then they spread. They were spreading out. After the announcement came, there was a rapid fire of clergy, and that was something very powerful for me. This was real. This was a real religion. One guy starts to pray, and he says his prayer, and then he's done. And then another guy gets up and says his prayer, and it's like a rapid fire, And this is just a scene of tragedy, of national scale, mega tragedy. And well, these are the last rites or utterances of the Spirit. Both are houses of worship there, delivering it up.
The safety of this little town. It's like when Kennedy died. That peace over all has been shattered. I think that's the biggest thing that happened here. The shattering of the illusion of our little world. How did this happen to us? And the magnitude of every flag in the nation at half-staff for Newtown. What happened here? $26 pebbles. That's exactly what happened. Each one of those drop into a pond and just emanates out. The ripples, the vibrations. It's life. This stuff spreads.
This morning from Newtown, Connecticut, tragedy at the elementary school. 27 killed.
ABC's Dan Harris has been at the scene since early today here in Newtown, Connecticut.
Good morning. I'm Dan Clefo on the tragedy.
I just got swarmed. I was literally swarmed, and I couldn't get out. And I will say at one point there was just so much confusion and gossip and rumor, and I wasn't the great clarifier. I knew what happened inside that room. And don't get me wrong, I think the story needs to be out there. I think it needs to continue to be out there, but I just have never seen anything like it in my life. There were just hundreds and hundreds there in just the first few hours.
horrible, invasive. It was like a rape. There was no escape, and there was no time for us to grieve. Everybody would be watching, and when somebody went down, at the where people would fall to their knees, and there would be a hive of people there just to let them cry, You can't. You can't do that with the media because it's so intrusive. Man, they just want to see you sobbing. They want to see you in pain. We actually had to put up signs on the doors of town hall that said no press.
The next day, we printed out the list of names, and we brought the kids into the TV room, and we said, we found out who got hurt, and some people died. Some teachers died. And then we told them first, we said, Dawn Hawksprung, Mrs. Hawksprung, is gone. She didn't make it. And they just immediately started crying because my older daughter just loved her so much. She just started crying. And then my little one put her hands over her ears and said, I don't want to hear anymore.
I went to a counseling center and I said to them, how am I supposed to tell my son this? Please tell me how. And I said, guys, can I workshop this with you a little? And they said they couldn't, and then I was just basically in shock. So I asked, well, can I write this down? Because I don't know what you just said to me. And so we wrote it down, and we sat with our son the next day, and we told him, who. And then we told him that his best friend was gone.
The whole intersection, just wall-to-wall satellite trucks, dishes everywhere. You can't see the buildings from the dishes.
Yeah, and it's just, you're thinking, why? The press never comes to Newtown.
We have our local newspaper, the Newtown Bee, and it takes a week to generate enough local news. We're having a bake sale.
And my first reaction was kind of weird. I felt sort of comforted in some kind of weird way. It was like the world was recognizing that this was the most horrendous thing to happen on the face of the earth. And sort of bearing witness to that and saying, this is so big, we have to be here.
There's no place, you're immune to it. There's no place within Newtown or Sandy Hook you could go. It took us maybe from our house to Sandy Hook normally 5 minutes, and you'd have to allow at least an hour to get into town because of the traffic jams. Every news truck, every people, because the highway sign says Newtown. And people pull off the highway just to see. Just to see.
I felt, maybe I could absorb some of this sadness, or maybe I could deflect some of this by standing in this vigil, sort of silent vigil. I woke up and I thought, oh my God, if this is what my town is now known for, I just couldn't bear it. And what was this? I was compelled, and I had this dream, and I woke up and I said, I have to go make a sign. I have to go make a sign and go sit out somewhere. So I called my friend Vicky and I said, I'm going to make a sign, and it's going to say, I am love, I am Newtown. And I'm going to sit at the highway exit 10. So it's the first thing they see when they come in, and the last thing they see when they leave. So me and my daughter made this sign.
Everyone was up in arms, and I said, listen, this is the center of the world right now. Think about it. Newtown is the center of the world, the universe. It's here. I knew that without them here, the rest of the world wouldn't be able to get all the details. They wouldn't be able to mourn with us. They were doing their job, and they were respectful.
I sat there for hours, and everyone would come up in all the media, and I just said, don't ask me a thing. I'm in silent vigil and just holding this space. This is my message, and no, you cannot have my name. And I sat there, and I did this because we are this.
There are only so many places you can go in Sandy Hook, and that's what I told everyone. Where do you want them to go? Where do you want them to park? Explain it to me. Can't go to the schools, can't go to the firehouse, the park is jammed. The park, I don't know if you've been to, but you couldn't park there. Where could they go? Where could those people go? You have to be rational about it. People here are sick. They're crying too. I had news reporters crying. They said, I've never cried before. They'd been to wars, and when I saw them emotional, I knew that we were all in this together. The whole country is in this together. What are you gonna do?
The next week was just funerals and wakes, and it was pretty indescribable.
I stood in line for the principal's funeral and had to miss class. And here I am thinking, it's a town away, I'm gonna go pay my respects. I had a card prepared for the family, a note I had written, and I got there a bit late. There were news cameras that weren't allowed to be up close, and lots of police. And the line went out the building, around the block, down the corner, and we're talking like rural blocks here, like a mile. There's a mile-long line easily, so went to the end of the line, stood there with my hands in my pockets, freezing my ass off, and I wouldn't leave. I'm just standing there looking at the flag. I mean, it was really iconic. They had dropped a gigantic American flag from the boom arm of a fire truck right over the road, right before the whole crowd walked in to pay their respects to them. And it was a really strong gathering moment. Everybody was there because she represented what was wonderful about that school. And I don't know, man, that was tough. That was really tough, and I was in and out in less than 5 minutes and stood in line for more than 4 hours. But I shook her husband's hand, and there was, lots of sadness. There's no other way to put it.
And that's what should drive us forward in everything we do, for as long as God sees fit to keep us on this earth. God has called them all home. For those of us who remain, let us find the strength to carry on and make our country worthy of their memory.
I don't know. I still can't explain why something like this would happen. I just think of the brutality of it, and I think, how could any God let something like that happen?
I really have been put into a very different role than I've ever expected. I'm like the leader of this community, and I really don't see myself in that role. I was a pastor at St. Rose, and that's what you do. That's what priests do, and I can never decide if it's ascribed or achieved leadership, and it's put a lot of pressure on me that I normally wouldn't put on myself. I'll be honest, I've kept my distance from some of those families because I'm a mess, personally. We've had 8 of the funerals here, and it still gets to me. I can't talk with them, but we have staff doing everything they can to support and encourage them, but I just have to keep my distance from them right now.
It was just evil. It was just evil. There's no reasoning, A soul was lost and took others with him, ones that didn't deserve to go. My spiritual belief is though they will be back, just different names, different families, different everything. So there will be another soul coming back through. I think I did pray more to Gaia, Mother Earth, and was real taken aback that she would take that many young souls at one moment. I know there's evil on this earth, and sadly it's found its way to our town, and I just asked her to bring back those souls quickly,
Does this shake my faith? No.
No.
Absolutely no. It actually makes us stronger.
Yeah, stronger.
And us both, that's why we're here, to help not just those, but everyone.
Anybody that needs help. Yeah.
And it actually built us both, I guess.
Yeah, made us stronger. I mean, just healing-wise for me, I'm always healing myself, but healing other people.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen her go. Like, if someone's in the store and someone has a... We've had...
I had 5 in one day, right in a row, and then I took maybe a 5 or 10 minute break just to get some water. And after that, I was almost ready to pass out.
How about the reporters?
Yeah.
I was doing
A filming,
and I said, Jer, these reporters need help. She didn't even hesitate. She just, right to it. She shielded them, so she tried to. She tried. We're hoping for the best.
I don't know if you believe any of this stuff, but you seem to be open-minded, so I heard from one of the kids that died, Jesse Lewis. I told a friend, and he said to me, you gotta talk to Scarlett. You gotta talk to Scarlett Lewis. So I asked him to ask her if she would let me do a free healing on her. I didn't want to say, I just heard from your son, so we became closer, and I channeled her son for her. If I wasn't able to communicate with Jesse, you know what I mean? I think I'd be a real mess. I think the way I felt from Jesse's side was that he's very strong, and he actually told, he and his mother both knew he wasn't going to live very long. And before he died, I can show inside. I'll show you inside. He drew on his chalkboard 3 words: healing, nurturing, and love. He drew this on his chalkboard, and he's like 6, and when I connect with him, he's very strong. He feels like a general, and he saved like 10 kids' lives during the shooting. When the gun jammed, he was like, go, 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 the gun jammed. He's 6 years old, and he got these kids running, and they're all in shock, and if he hadn't said that, they'd still be standing there. There'd be 10 more bodies. And I think he was already shot at the time, and he still said that. And he's so strong and so amazing. So maybe I need that. Maybe that helps me keep faith.
This was not an act of God. This was an act of man. You've got free will, and so that means that anything can happen. Adolf Hitler can happen. Senseless deaths and shootouts and holdups and robberies, they can happen, and they do happen every day in this country.
The thing was, people kept telling me, God gave free will. It was his fault. It wasn't God's. It was his free will. He chose to do this. But I guess my questions are, well, if he had a mental illness, then it wasn't really his fault. He couldn't help it, right? Then my daughter asks me, is he in hell? And, we tried to explain, well, he was probably sick and he didn't really know what he was doing. So then she said, well, if he was sick, then that means he wasn't an evil person. So then God would forgive him. What if he feels sorry? Does he still go to hell? These are questions that we, as adults, don't have the answer for. What does a parent do?
In the shooter's home, police found the following:
a 7-foot pole with a blade on one side and a spear on the other.
A metal bayonet.
3 samurai swords.
323 caliber bolt-action rifle.
22 caliber Savage Mark II rifle.
22 volcanic starter pistol.
News articles on the 2008 shooting at Northern Illinois University,
And inside his gun safe was a holiday card from his mother.
containing a check for the purchase of his next firearm.
Well, of course, I'm angry. I'm angry at his mother especially, and I'm angry at his father and his brother, because obviously there was a lot more to the story in terms of his upbringing and just the lack of care he probably received as a child and all that. And also, I blame her friends. Because did anybody not see that this woman wasn't all together? And did nobody say anything? And what about her ex-husband? Didn't he ever go into the house and see these guns?
I think he was someone that fell through the cracks, and it happens. You don't always notice I have a person that I knew that, fell through the cracks. And eventually, as time went on, he ended up committing suicide. How do you know that you know when a person truly needs the support that they need? This was actually my first husband. I knew he had problems, but I didn't know how deep the problem was, and I divorced him. So where do you? It's just sadly, some people fall through the cracks, and you don't even know it.
What did he teach us in that evil act? That we're not safe? That's what he was trying to teach. That's what he was trying to do. That's not the lesson we should take from it. And everybody knows that, but they can't help but feel a little less safe.
Not that I'm blaming, not that I'm pointing fingers or blaming any one person, but the village raises the child. I think one of the biggest problems was his isolation. Humans are not meant to be isolated. We're meant to be connected, and when someone's not connected, bad things start to happen.
I did know him. And honestly, a lot of his family. He was a good kid, but unfortunately, even though we do live in a huggy town, kids from 6th to 8th grade, they form a clique.
Our son came to us one day and he said, I feel bad, I feel guilty. And I said, about what? He said, I should have said something. What do you mean you should have said something? My heart is starting to pound. And he said, well, when we had that Halloween party, the kids and I were sitting around and talking about how he was really weird. Well, weird how? Just weird? Well, was that it? Well, basically. So, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Look, there are a lot of weird people out there, but we can't report them for being weird.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Start incarcerating people because they look funny? Well, then it's not America anymore.
He was kind of pushed aside, and I think his mother did what she had to do.
I think even when he was in high school that he would kind of walk with his back against the lockers to go from class to class. This kinds of stuff gets the attention of other kids, and it's just a fact of life we all know. We've all been through some type of incident growing up where someone has pointed us out for being different for whatever reason.
His mother and father had counseling just before the divorce. 3 months prior to this, he was fine, and then he got disturbed that it was final decision that dad moved and brother moved. He had no one else to talk to, and that just snapped the camel's back. When he was on medication and in therapy, he was the one who would take his shirt off of his back to help you. He was the one that did tutoring for the younger. He was the one that would scold the younger if he found them smoking pot, so it's just, people forget all of these good things about him.
I always have 28 candles out. I believe in forgiveness, and that is one of the biggest issues. Is it 26 or 28? A very sensitive issue.
I'll be happy to talk about this. you're actually talking to a family that has someone with a pretty serious mental illness. My brother is schizophrenic, and there was a good 5 years.
10 years.
10 years. That was gray as could be. No black, no white. What is he gonna do? I have no idea what my brother is gonna do.
Thing is, and maybe it's not appropriate, but 28 people died that day, not 26. There were 28 lives that were lost, 28 families that mourned.
I think his mother did everything she possibly could. There's a point where you're scared, you're afraid, but you have hope because it's your son. He's not a monster. He's mentally ill. He doesn't think like the rest of us. It's like what you said, Dad. Some people honestly just don't know the difference between right and wrong.
A very good friend of mine explained it perfectly. He said there's no difference between a man who is being chased by someone with a machine gun and a man who thinks he's being chased by someone with a machine gun. Our parents teach us things and it sticks with us. And we pass it down to our children. And there's one little hiccup and it feels like everything you taught them just goes away. I mean, you sit there and you think to yourself, who stole my son away from me? I mean, the sad part is there's nothing we can do about it. He was over 18 years old, and legally there was nothing we could do. I mean, we're no different from Mrs. Lanza because we let our son function. There just wasn't much of anything we could do.
Adam was a gifted child that we failed. I gotta believe that if there was someone there, a big brother, highly trained, that could sit him down eyeball to eyeball and say, listen, Adam, you're gifted, you're different, and a lot of kids said you're strange, but that's because you're different. I want to introduce you to some people who are like you, who have Asperger's and are researchers or actuaries or other things with intense mathematics involved. You can be at the forefront of medical research with your skills, and very few people can do that. You've got it, and I want to help you. I'm going to help you find your way in this world, in this life, because you're gifted. And some kids are going to say you're strange or bully you for that. I know that we all get bullied. Join the club. Well, you're in the club, but I want you to know that I'm your friend, and I'll be meeting with you every week. Some days we'll just go outside and play, shoot some hoops, and other days we'll just go out and talk. We're mammals. We flock together. We need to be together.
The one thing that really struck me during all of this is when I heard Adam's body wasn't being claimed. That was a week's worth of staying up at night.
The only thing any asshole does is he succeeds in being infamous. And he will become a mark in a history book, in some cases, if we let him. What do you do? How do you bury people like that so you forget them? Because that's what you need to do. You need to forget them.
I think we're all trying to find our place now. I knew who I was before December 14th, and now it's like, who am I? What am I supposed to do? What can I do? How do I help? And then you just feel like you're adding to all the noise.
Well, I think for many, many moms, we became sort of accidental activists, if you can call it that. When I went to the first psychologist meeting, I just said, I don't know what to do. I'm so angry about this gun stuff. I don't know what to do. And she said, well, you can't focus on what has happened, so if you're really angry about the gun stuff, then focus on that. And that was actually a really good idea. So I started emailing my the Connecticut the lawmakers and just whoever's email address I could get or whoever's website I could go to and just freeform type because I was just so mad and upset about this gun stuff. Because I didn't really know about it before. I wasn't really anti-gun, but I wasn't pro-gun, and now it's just like your eyes are open to this stuff, and now you just can't close them.
Newtown doesn't want to be remembered as the town of the tragedy. We want to be remembered as a bridge to a new and kinder world. It's not about the suburbs or the urban areas. It's not about the rural areas. It's about the red blood that flows through all of our veins. It's about the clear tears that flow out of our eyes. We're all the same.
There were these people demonstrating outside of the NSSF building, which is on the corner, and this building, I don't think anyone knew what it was before. It's national shooting. It's like sports, recreational shooting. And so they're a resource for people who hunt, and they're a resource to let people know where they're able to hunt and shoot and what the rules are. And it's a very positive organization. It's been here for decades. So yeah, there were people outside of it saying, "Get out of Newtown, get out, get out." And I went into the grocery store after hearing them and then seeing the signs, and I just start bawling. I mean bawling and bawling and bawling. And I'm like, "Stop crying, you're in the grocery store, please, I'll cry in the car, just stop." And I had to check out with all my crap like that, just crying through the whole process, and it's like, oh, man, you know, that really sucked.
We live in a society of 32,000 deaths by guns alone every year. If these people died on the battlefields of Afghanistan, we would not accept it. Yet, when it happens right here, in the cities of America, we somehow are mysteriously silent.
And now I'm crying in the car. I couldn't even drive. So I pull over to the demonstrators and I say, "You guys, stop the hatefulness. You're a part of the hate."
This isn't hate. This is love.
That makes me even more sad. You think this is love? There's a sign that says "Get out," and that's not hate?
Well, okay, this is hate.
I was just begging them to stop perpetrating this hate. There is so much division now, and it's very strange because it's like overnight.
You get so desensitized to it, to just a way of violence is life today. You know, this dark side or cultural death or whatever you want to call it, it's overwhelming us.
That's not the problem. We have no social skills in America anymore. The parents want to teach their kids how to be verbal and vocalized, and you know, they have a hard time. I grew up outside all my life. My parents gave me a Nintendo, and it came with 3 games. Remember that? It was Donkey Kong, Mario Brothers, and Zelda, I think. It was stupid. It was horrible, and that's all you got. And if I wanted something else, my parents just said, "That's what you get." And you know, after a while, you just said, "Forget this," and you wanted to go back outside. We just don't have social skills anymore.
And when someone's not connected, bad things start to happen. There is going to be trauma.
My son's teacher, Miss Roig, was fast and furious.
She's my hero.
She had them in a morning meeting quiet, and when she heard the noises ringing through the windows and the doors, she just said, "Bathroom."
And I think she got them all in the bathroom within the room, and she pulled sort of a little bookcase in front of the door of the bathroom.
And it was literally seconds because he had to have gone by her room to get to Vicky Soto's room. And so they sat, listening to everything for however long it was. And my son was trying to talk her into running. He said, "We can get out of here. I don't want to die. I don't want to miss Christmas."
My daughter said that one of the scariest things was when the police came and knocked on the door because they didn't know if he was the bad guy. She actually thought that she was going to die and that the bad guy or bad guys were coming in. Mrs. Roig didn't open the door. She made the police slide their badge under the door before she would open it. My husband talked to her at the firehouse, and she just said, "There's going to be trauma."
There's going to be trauma.
They heard everything. They seemed to be okay for a while, and then my son started to show signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And then we as a family go into, how do we make it better for him? And we didn't know how.
The first graders and whoever are in that that hallway area, they are completely different because they actually thought that they were dying that day.
It was noises. It was locking all the doors. He needed to make sure all the doors were locked. He would walk around the house, and if he heard the garage door open, he would think somebody was coming into the house.
So now she won't leave my side or my husband's side or a grown-up's side because she was we were giving her melatonin every night to help her fall asleep because her teachers would tell me that she would be sitting in class with her head on her desk and she had these huge bags under her eyes.
I guess with PTSD, you have that fear of not being safe. So children end up just being scared. They weren't scared of monsters before. Now they're scared of monsters.
So now she's scared of werewolves. Oh. She's scared of bombs. She's afraid of bombs.
No.
She thinks someone's putting a bomb in her house. At the time, someone was working on our generator, and she kept asking, "Is he putting a bomb in our generator? What is he doing here? Why is he in our house?"
We don't know all the things that are broken. We are still discovering them because we have been asleep and haven't been paying attention. Look, I've read a lot about Columbine, 10 to 14 years later on, and the principal said she's had kids that have gone through that were fine, went to college, appeared to be fine, got married, appeared to be fine, had children, and bam, they just fell to pieces. Generational PTSD. I think with our society, it's a bit of shame. And that's why I came out and said, look, yes, I have got PTSD. Thinking about having a t-shirt made saying, "Got PTSD?" I do.
People here are afraid. It's scary to talk about it because you don't know who's been touched by what. There are times I want to drive away and never come back. And then there are times I never want to leave. I just think everyone is so afraid. That's what it is. If I get really angry, I'm not going to crumble into a puddle, which is what I really need and want to do, because if I let myself go there, what's going to happen to me? I don't know if I'll ever recover. How could you possibly? How do you process all of this?
This is what happened to us. And because so much happened, we weren't really allowed a moment to grieve for these babies. But I remember the morning the flags went back up because I had heard about it and drove in. I was getting there at some crazy hour in the morning, and I called David, the guy who helps me with the building, and said, "Get those flags back up. I want the big flag up in the center of town. Raise those flags and get them back where they're supposed to be." And then we just watched. David raised the flags, and I thought, okay, all right. We're getting our town back. Now all you people leave.
I'm Chris, and I guess what you're looking for is, shortly after the 14th, I was put in charge of all the logistics of all the in-town relations, which is what they were called. I was in charge of everything that came in, how to handle it, how to bring it in, and then eventually disbursement. So I kind of ran that show. I had a lot of help, but I was put in charge of it.
Let me tell you something. Doing the mail is tough.
I know it is.
I mean, doing the mail it's really tough. The only way you can do it is to just, you have to block yourself. You just have to block yourself and you just do it.
I know, but it has been such a healing for so many people.
Facebook being the wonderful thing that it is, someone came up with a wonderful idea to start sending teddy bears to Newtown. And well, I had seen it in the news before, but I never really thought much of it. So by Monday morning, she had brought in a couple of bags, my girlfriend, because they were giving out toys and teddy bears and stuff across the way. She said, if I could get some more, that would be great. So we went to the church, and there was a full fourth grade class to my waist, and you're as big as I am. It was just a full fourth grade classroom, and there were thousands of teddy bears in that one room alone, and that was just after the first week. So that kind of opened my eyes a little bit to the scale things were going to be.
It ended up being so strange that everywhere we went, my son kept getting free teddy bears. Free. People, the whole world was like pouring all this love on us. There was just such love pouring in from everywhere. And then you start to think, that was 20 kids lost, all at the same time. It was horrific. It was a massacre. It was a tragedy. And then you start to think, how many kids die in Chicago every year to probably pretty poor moms? You know what I mean? And how they grow up with all this violence, and then nobody does anything for those parents.
I started putting up signs, and then I take a call from Dennis from Ace Trailer. He says, I can drop off some more trailers. What do you need? And I just say, drop off whatever you can, because we're going to start running out of room. We filled those trailers by Thursday. People were driving in from Iowa, Nebraska, Florida, Texas. People were driving in from Texas to drop off teddy bears.
And the hugs. This class in Africa sent silhouettes of their bodies giving hugs.
With their face. And it was this big.
And their arms were just stretched out. Man, it was the cutest.
And we hung it up on the wall, and anytime somebody started getting down doing the mail, we'd just say, go get a hug.
You need help? I'm here. And that's how it all started. I help my friends all the time, and I thought about it and says, these people are just friends I haven't met yet. And oh boy, do they need help.
People needed to do it for themselves, and that's what a lot of it turned out to be. Newtown is not a poor community. I mean, there are some pockets of broke, but there's no real poverty like in other towns, so we didn't really need 63,700 teddy bears.
Everybody's looking, everybody's watching, and everybody's scared. It's not us, which is what we've been trying to get across to the people that want to send another 60,000 teddy bears. You need to look at your own children. They're scared. They need counseling. They need teddy bears. Do it there. We got them, trust me. We got the teddy bears. Give them to your children in honor of ours.
The other problem was the overwhelming number of volunteers. Way too many. And they would, 100 of them would show up. You train all of them, and then tomorrow another different 100 would show up. So you'd have to train all of them. So it was chaos. The hard problem was the families that would come into the warehouse to pick up their items. I didn't know any of them at first, but I kept my title by just going up to them and saying, hey, how you doing? I'm Kat, if you need anything. And they would, They'd stick out their hand, and I'd say, no, I give hugs.
We ended up sending stuff all over. First, we gave the families of the choice where they wanted stuff to go. So if a family wanted stuff to go to Green Chimneys, we'd send stuff to Green Chimneys. Or if a family wanted stuff to go to the Lakota Indian tribe, I managed to send a tractor trailer worth of stuff to the Lakota Indian tribe for free. We had a lot of stuff go to Hurricane Sandy. A lot of stuff went to a mission in India where kids don't have much. We took care of all the battered women's shelters, animal hospital, children's hospitals. We sent stuff to the police station so they can start keeping teddy bears in their trunks again. I have a list of where everything went if you want to see it, but everywhere was just somewhere good. And I got to do it all I had to do it all for free. We didn't really have a budget for any of it, so for free. It was done on the backs of volunteers.
The ripples, the vibrations. This stuff spreads.
Then we had Yoli.
I've been hearing about Yoli for what? 6 months now? Well, 5 anyway. And she keeps saying to me, what kind of name is Yoli?
Well, now I hope I'm telling you the right story. We were obviously very in it. We were in the hallways of decided we were going to display everything that came in. So we put the tables out into the hallways and got the tablecloths out and put all the mail in bins. And then there's this skinny little rump kid, and she's going up and down, and she's sort of settled in. And I didn't know who she was, and she had a camera, and she's taking pictures. Hi, what are you doing?
I'm just taking pictures.
What do you mean you're just taking pictures? You've been taking pictures of hundreds and thousands of cards. So the next day, I go down there, and the cards are now fanned out, and she's creeping into new territory. She's out there, and she's making a mess on my table. What are you doing?
Well, I'm not doing anything. I just kind of want it to get.
And then the next day I go, and the cards are now on the floor, and they're spread out all over the place. Okay, we're gonna have to have a talk here. What is it that you would like to do?
My mission is to have an online collection that represents all of it. So anyone, their children or brothers or sisters or aunts, uncles, whatever, they can come and look at these and be like, wow, that really helps. Wow, that really, really helps. They can print them out and make themselves up. There are poems people have written. And it can be as simple as someone wrote on a big piece of paper, no words, love, Trey. A mother of 2 from Texas, and you're like, oh yeah, that's it.
I think she's nuts for doing this, but she's doing this.
She went from being somebody who just showed up, and now
She's got the keys to the kingdom. She can do whatever she wants.
Do you know the idea of agape? It's when you love everyone because they deserve it. I don't love, well, I guess I can say love everyone. You don't have to like everyone. You don't have to live with them, and you don't have to be friends with them. But you have to build a community where there's something for everyone. And the connections that are being made and what we're really trying to do is to make a model for what we're supposed to be doing from now on.
My daughter finally went back to school, and there was no help in the classroom whatsoever. No trauma people, no doctors, nothing. They had these special helpers. If a child had an issue in the classroom, it was the special helper's job to sort of take the child out of the classroom and go read a book or just redirect them and get them to a happier place and then return them back to the classroom. So they had that, but it wasn't really doing anything. Every time I had gone, I just saw my daughter sitting there so isolated. She wasn't contributing to anything. She would just be sitting there in tears, doing nothing. And every noise that she heard would just make her withdraw. So we met with the superintendent, and they said they had a plan. It took a couple of weeks, but they finally got someone in the classroom, and she is great. She's still in the classroom, which is wonderful. And the classroom actually got so much better. They started laughing and joking around and all that.
After all this happened, we went to our synagogue. The rabbi said, is anyone from here? Does anybody have comments, or does anybody have questions? So I turned to my son and I was like, do you want me to say something? And he was like, no, no, no. And then he was like, yeah. So I said, this is my son. He was there. he survived. And everyone was just like shocked, that I got up and said something. And so my 6-year-old stands in front of the whole congregation and says, every day there are shadows, but every day there is also light too.
I mean, it's amazing, putting him to bed at night. I check in on him every night before I go to bed, and I'm just amazed at how much he's grown since December.
That's the one thing you see in children. They're so resilient, so much more resilient than we are, right? They're very happy kids because kids are supposed to be happy. That's where the innocence comes from. You look out and you see his friends who are also affected, and they're just boys playing football, doing what they're supposed to.
Everything is blooming. It's gorgeous. And the contrast to what it felt like here on December 14th is just, it was so different. Things are blossoming. Life came back. It's coming back.
This all leaves you with a lot of questions, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't, because the more you're questioning it, the more you're talking about it. And the more you're talking about where can we go from here and what can we do from here. And as an educator, what can we learn from this? I mean, it's so cliche, but it's true. What can we learn from this?
There's a journey to go through, You've got to go through the darkness before you can get to the light.
This is still home and will continue to be. You see this with every tragedy. The president or the town officials say, look, Houston, we're going to get through this. Or in Florida, we as Floridians are a tough bunch. I know for us that's true, but more.
It's like all love is. It just draws things to you. And I feel like it's my duty, because that's how I've been since I got here. You just have to let go and be joyful and live joyfully, because the alternative is and was misery.
Just because you're a survivor doesn't mean you're 100%. You should go away happy. You're fine. Get over it. Shake it off. The kid is different. These parents lost something, even though they still have their kids. They still lost something.
My love for this town was here long before any of this ever happened. I mean, when we moved here, we saw, 80-something houses? I was the biggest royal pain in the neck you could ever think of.
Mm-hmm.
So we're driving down the road one day, and they stop the car, and the realtor and my wife turn around, and they go, all right, which one?
Pick it.
I was like, okay, the white one with the fence.
Fine, the white one with the fence. We're just moving up. We're going to take care of our families and continue our counseling. We're going to take care of the cops and the EMTs and the dispatchers and the high school kids, and hope that we can heal and that it won't hurt so much. Newtown has to move on. So, let's move on.
Family. Always was, always will be.
Connected.
Can I say 2? Wait, I want to say 3. Capital S, strong, period. Capital R, resilient, period. Capital T, transformative, period.
Strength.
Huggy and friendly.
New world.
Compassion. There's so much of it in this town. There's so much I've never seen anything like it in my life. I hope I never do again, but there is so much.
LOVE.
Love.
Together. Because the only way you're going to push through and do it is together. You can't be a one-man band. You can look back, but you have to move forward. You have to do it immediately and together. Love.
Love. It's all about how you ripple out and what these vibrations can be. We are love. We are Newtown. That message says it all.